We're in an energy crisis. Our biggest problem is how do we keep everything running despite the increasing demand on the energy grid? Phyllis's next guest has solved this problem. Stay tuned for inventor and MIT professor Asegun Henry.
I'm Dr. Asegun Henry. I am a professor in mechanical engineering at MIT. I'm the founder and chief technologist of Fourth Power. So the way the system works is we take in electricity. We, of course, want it to come from renewable energy. And we use that electricity to run effectively a giant light bulb, a joule heating element. So it's a large graphite element that heats up. It's like a resistor that has electricity flowing through it, and it heats up to about half the temperature of the sun, about 2,500 degrees Celsius. That heating element is positioned next to some graphite plumbing that has liquid tin flowing into it. So the tin flows in at about 1,900 degrees Celsius. All the light being emitted by that heating element then heats the tin up to 2,400 degrees Celsius when it exits. The tin then flows over to the graphite storage blocks, which is where we're storing the energy, and they're made out of a lower grade of graphite that's very cheap. As the tin flows in the tubes past the graphite blocks, those tubes are radiating light, causing those blocks to heat up nominally from 1900 C all the way up to the peak temperature of 2400 C. And so when the blocks reach 2400 C, the entire system is considered fully charged. The entire system is encased in a very large layer of thermal insulation. So now the energy can sit there weeks and months. We lose about 1% of the energy we're storing over the course of an entire day. When you now want electricity back on the grid, you now use that big bank of graphite blocks like a heater. And what it does is it keeps the liquid metal hot, and we pump it through. The liquid metal comes out at 2400 C, and then it goes over to what we call our thermophotovoltaic or TPV power block. The TPV power block essentially has a bunch of graphite tubes and panels that radiate light onto solar cells, which we call thermophotovoltaics. These TPV cells have a special design in the sense that they are attuned to the light that's coming out at now half the temperature of the sun. But instead of being 93 million miles away, instead our heat source is only a few inches away. And so that allows the light put onto the cells to be extremely intense. And in fact, that's the light that scales with temperature to the fourth power. With that extremely intense light, we now get a lot of power output from very little cells. And so that electricity coming out of those solar cells then goes back to the grid and keeps the grid going for as long as you need. Each of the individual TPV cells is about 1 square centimeter, has an output of about 2 volts. And at the end of the day, utilities are charged with 2 basic tasks: to deliver energy at the lowest possible cost, and number 2, to ensure that that energy is available reliably. Renewables solve one problem. They're now the cheapest source of putting energy onto the grid. And so now the challenge is really shifting to how do you deliver it reliably, and that is the problem that the Fourth Power thermal battery solves.
You are watching Profundo TV with host Phyllis Haynes.
It's a pleasure to see you again. I know you're very busy, Ashe. Can you tell me what's happening with your extraordinary invention and work? What is
Yeah,
happening?
yeah, a lot has happened since the last time we talked. So, um, my guess is prior to or around the time we last spoke, I'm not sure how much money we had raised at that time, but I had started pretty early on with a company that I founded. Initially, the name was actually Thermal Battery Corporation, and we switched it to Fourth Power. Part of what sparked that was I managed to bring on a CEO, and the CEO, I was very, very fortunate to get an introduction to him through my first investor, which is Breakthrough Energy Ventures. Breakthrough Energy Ventures is Bill Gates's energy venture operation that
Congratulations.
he founded. Yeah, so I had some connection with some of them from prior work that I'd done at the Department of Energy, working at ARPA-E. So I knew some folks there. They made an initial investment, and one of the great values of working with Breakthrough is they have an incredible network. So they started introducing me to people. One of the key things we wanted to solve was, I'm still an MIT professor. So it was clear that I wasn't going to be like the CEO of Fourth Power as like some full-time job. I was going to eventually go back as a professor. I did end up taking a 2-year leave of absence from MIT, so I was actually full-time at the company for 2 years. And part of what all sparked that was being able to bring on the CEO. So the CEO is Arvind Ganesen. Um, Managed to recruit him again through an introduction from Breakthrough Energy Ventures from Apple. He was the global head of energy at Apple, and energy policy. So he had previously been appointed by Obama actually to help lead policy work at the EPA. And then he went there and started working at Apple. And he took Apple fully renewable. So he had, when I talked to Breakthrough, they were asking me, like, what do you really want in a CEO of the company? And for me, the part that I was pretty clear about was, um, I knew the technology side. I mean, that's my expertise. But the key thing that I didn't have really was the connection to the customer. And Fourth Power's customers are utilities. So your local power company, whoever you pay your utility bill, that is who would eventually be a customer of Fourth Power. And Arvin is really well connected and well versed with utilities, not just in the United States, but all around the world. So he's done utility deals all around the world. He knows the entire community. He knows everybody. He has, great Rolodex and well networked. And he also, has built large teams, very, very excellent functional teams. And so that was some of the key ingredients that brought us together as a tandem. I worked as CTO of the company for 2 years while I was on leave. And during that time, we really built out the leadership team. We built out the entire engineering team, made a bunch of technical project progress that I'll talk about. Um, but one of the key things I'm very, very excited about was even just really the filling out of the rest of the leadership team. So Arvin and I work very closely together. We're constantly,
Your company solves a big problem. What's
yes,
the problem that you solve?
yeah. So the problem that we solve is very simple, which is that climate change ultimately is being caused by the fact that we use hydrocarbons, hydrocarbon fuels, in order to make electricity and to run transportation. And in order to deal with climate change, we basically have to switch from using hydrocarbons as a fuel source to some form of renewables. The main problem with renewables, they've become very, very cheap. So they're actually the cheapest source of electricity now. But the main issue is that you only get renewable electricity when the sun is out or the wind is blowing. And so the key problem is that you need to be able to operate the utility grid around the clock and be able to match supply and demand. And so what that then requires is something in the middle, some form of storage. You need to be able to store enough electricity when the sun is out and the wind is blowing, charge up some kind of energy storage, and then put that energy back on the grid when people want it. And that technology doesn't exist. The main thing people usually point to is pumped hydroelectricity as a form of storage and or lithium ion batteries, both of which have gotten much cheaper. Lithium batteries continue to come down in cost, but they are still about a factor of 10 too expensive. So they are way more expensive. You try to put, let's say, a bunch of solar panels and a lithium ion battery in order to be able to operate continually. It turns out the lithium ion battery is more expensive than the solar panels are. And so this is the key problem. And so our technology solves this problem by introducing a new technology for storing energy that is 10 times cheaper than lithium ion so that you can store energy very cheaply and now have solar or wind plus storage and have that together be cheaper than natural gas and provide electricity around the clock.
So I probably wouldn't have called you, but I read something that really said this is where your company is going to make a big difference. With all these gigantic data centers being built around the country, there's going to be a tremendous demand on the grid or
Yeah.
grids.
Yeah.
And I thought about you. Am I right in reading that you may be a very helpful solution to that problem?
Yeah, it's we will see how it plays out. So there's a lot of discussion about AI and the AI revolution, which is actually being held up by power. So what is at the precipice or at the conjunction of whether or not the AI revolution will happen or how fast it will happen is it's entirely dictated by getting access to the power. So, there's really no big innovation in computers or cooling or any of these other things. It's really all about can they get the power they need. So most of these hyperscalers, as we call them, are interested in deploying very large, what they call data center campuses. So I don't know if most people are familiar, but these are not even just a single building. These are ginormous campuses of buildings full of large, what we consider supercomputers or clusters of computers. And the power consumption is equivalent to, small cities. And so we're talking about hundreds of megawatts. Some of these companies are looking at even gigawatt scale power, which again, is similar to what's used in medium to large size cities. This is a radical request for utilities to try to meet. Many of them are interested in trying to meet the request, and because it's a great opportunity for them to grow, build new business. However, the way the grid is set up to operate, it's a big shift. It's a big transition. It can destabilize grids. And so it requires a lot of other resources to then back them up and to make sure that they can operate and keep the grid stable while they do this. So requests come in, we call that demand. But the reality is the grid is not, utilities are not going to sacrifice providing electricity to residential homes and other businesses in order to meet this demand. And so this is really the crux of the issue is the hyperscalers are working with whatever utilities can provide power fastest and get them up and running. And so that's largely the two key things that are deciding where the data centers are being built is where do they have utilities that are willing and able to provide power quickly? And number two, where do they have access to the fiber optic backbone so they can transfer data very, very quickly? So those two things, wherever those two things are true, those are the places where they're trying to build data centers quickly. What we are hoping to offer, and I think the time frame for a lot of this stuff is call it within the next 5 to 6 years. This is the same time frame where we are looking to get our first deployments out. So to the extent that the AI revolution has extended into the mid 2030s, then I do think that we will play a very significant role. But most of the focus right now is just on building as much gas as they can. And so what that has done is that's putting a lot of strain on the gas pipelines. So, at some point you run into a limitation where even though, you can buy a natural gas power plant, if you can't get the fuel, you can't do anything. And so that fuel's got to come from existing pipelines. It takes too long to build a whole new pipeline. And so it's causing all kinds of issues throughout the entire energy system to try to navigate and put a lot of new power on the grid this quickly. So some other countries that are able to act faster are in a better position to compete with the United States when it comes to this data center revolution. And one of the things that Fourth Power is interested in trying to do is it's fastest actually to build renewables and put storage. It's faster than to do that than try to build a new gas pipeline. And so we are looking to pair our battery, which provides effectively a service called capacity, with renewables, either wind or solar, and be able to allow data centers to operate and get built very quickly.
It sounds like it's not only an offer, but something that's absolutely necessary. I mean, you have the solution. I mean, the only other solution that doesn't exist, which is making our grid better. I mean, it's just, it's amazing how behind the times we are with this grid. I keep thinking of the state of Texas, which is a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
But I would also think that energy companies would be wanting to talk to you to make sure that they can provide energy. So yeah,
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of discussions going on. Utilities, in terms of what their job is, they are chartered essentially to do two major things. Number one, provide electricity at the lowest possible price to the consumer. And
hmm
number two, to make sure that the electricity system is stable. The second issue is the majority of what drives everything. And so it's one thing to just go build a bunch of renewable power plants that only put on electricity when the sun is out or the wind is blowing. But to make the grid stable requires other resources, such as the fourth power thermal battery or peaking plants or something else to keep the grid stable so that you have power available whenever people need it. And that's actually the more costly aspect of operating the utility grid.
why the name Fourth Power?
Ah, Yeah, so this is a it's a funny story. So the original name of the company actually was Thermal Battery Corporation, and when I hired Arvin, the CEO, he made a comment to me. He was like, the name's kind of vanilla, kind of boring. Can we get something more exciting? And so we decided to rethink the name. As we were thinking about what our unique kind of value proposition is, one of the things that kind of came out of these discussions is that part of what's special about the fourth power thermal battery is that it's very small in size for the amount of power you get. And the reason that's true is because we operate at extremely high temperatures. Now, the amount of light that is emitted by something, which is what we rely on in the system, is scales with temperature to the fourth power. This is often referred to as the Stefan Boltzmann law. And so what it means is that if you double something's temperature, you don't get twice as much light being emitted. You actually get 16 times more light. It's because it's 2 to the fourth power times more light. And so we exploit this fact. So basically, once you get extremely hot, which is where our battery operates, making it a little bit hotter gives you a large amount of increased output from the power, and that helps to shrink the size because you need less equipment to hit the same power target. And so we decided to call the company Fourth Power. There's actually like four parallel reasons why we call it that. So one is the Stefan Boltzmann law. Another one is just the term power. So it's like fourth power. We're providing power to the customer. Another one is we are the fourth power conversion, so to speak, in the sequence of conversions that happen. So you've got sunlight being emitted from the sun that gets absorbed on the earth, and a solar panel puts out, and that gets converted to electricity. We then convert it to heat, which is the third power conversion, and then we convert it back to electricity. So we do the fourth power conversion. And then the fourth meaning is like go forth, meaning we are moving forth and pushing the utility grid going forth with its revolution as the fourth power going forth. So that's actually the website name, goforth.com.
So I'm waiting for my T-shirt. I mean, that would be great. I will happily wear a fourth power T-shirt. Um, it's really something to be an inventor. I know there have been other people who've contributed to the work as well. Um, what's it feel like? What's it feel like to be an American inventor?
It is extremely rewarding, to we often you see the results. You'll see a company and they're raising money, but there's a lot of history, right? So even before any of this, there's 10 years of research and development. There's all kinds of successes in my laboratory at Georgia Tech and MIT that preceded all this, and so it's just extremely fulfilling to have a dream, have an idea, and the version you see today is not the version we had back in 2012, 14 years ago. That is the version of the technology we were thinking about back then has pivoted a number of times. The beauty is we've managed to do those pivots on government Department of Energy funding rather than on venture funding. And so we've kind of settled on what the system will look like, what its advantages are, proven everything out on government dollars to be able to really set the company up for success. And so it's just been really fulfilling to have gotten a lot of input very early on. I was very clear that this was the ultimate destination of all this, and to get a lot of guidance and wisdom early on that really played a lot of role in a lot of the decisions we made along the pathway. And so to see it all kind of coming together and be successful is a big, big um, it's extremely fulfilling. It makes me, happy. I'm excited and energized every day to get up. And the other thing I would say is, about the team. So I mentioned hiring Arvin. Arvin is not the only superstar on the team. So bringing Arvin, I think, help bring other superstars to the team. So, for example, our EVP of engineering is a superstar, came from another company called Ambry. He spent 12 years developing another kind of battery technology and solved tremendous technical problems there and made excellent technical progress. Another EVP that we have, the EVP of operations, Fred Huang, he's pretty amazing. So Arvin and I did a podcast, and he reached out to us, and he said he sent us his resume. And honestly, when I saw the resume, it's kind of like you look at it and you're like, yeah, right. But his resume says that he built like the first Model 3 general assembly line for Tesla. And it's like, yeah, right. I'm sure there were like thousands of people involved in building that. And it turns out he is the guy. He's the guy that led it all. And so we got him. He then went on to build Rivian's $2 billion factory. And so like all Rivians are made in his factory. And so we have him on the team. He is setting the schedule, setting the entire plan for our scale up and manufacturing and supply chain. So it's phenomenal to have someone like him. We've got now a EVP of commercialization. So the largest utility in the United States is Pacific Gas and Electric, PG&E in California. She was the head of their renewable projects for a while. So to have someone like her on the team is just phenomenal to be able to recruit this kind of talent.
Well, I can see that you are also someone who cares about your team.
Definitely.
And I just really appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to say that I've not asked you about?
So many things, but I will just try to keep it short and just say that I'm very, very excited about everything that the company's doing. Things are going well. Um, Hopeful that there will be some pretty big announcements towards the end of this year or early next year about first customers and things like that that we have coming on board, and some other new investments and big technological announcements about things that we've achieved. So things are going well. Very excited. Again, the team is growing. It's about 30 people now. And we've got our new headquarters, which will be opening up. So we've got, 20,000 square feet or so of our new headquarters space where we're going to be doing our 1 megawatt hour demo, new manufacturing, all kinds of things, all at our own site here in the Massachusetts area. So in the Boston area, in Bedford. So very excited. So many things are happening and off and running.
Okay, make sure I get that T-shirt, Ashe.
Definitely, definitely. We have
Take
them.
okay. You take good care. Thank you
All right.
very much.
We've got a regular poetry and prose segment. Stay with us.
Shaking and quivering can mean life or death. The earth trembles beneath us, not as an enemy, but as a living body reminding us that nothing alive remains perfectly still. Rattling fossil lines of ancient bones bear witness to civilizations, creatures, and forests that once believed their seasons would never end. Toppling domino tombstones fall one after another, silent monuments to the illusion that permanence was ever ours to claim. We pretend we are separate. We are not. The breath that fills our lungs was first exhaled by forests. The rivers flowing through our veins have wandered the earth for millions of years. The calcium in our bones was forged in ancient stars. There is no death, only transformation. Yet we continue to squeeze Mother Earth into the tight corset of human ingenuity, consumption, and endless accumulation, asking her to sustain what no living body was ever meant to bear. We drape her magnificent beauty in a poison-soaked shroud, woven from discarded plastic, chemical runoff, burning skies, and the arrogance that believes every gift of nature exists only for our taking. We rake away the forests that patiently gathered the breath we depend upon. We plow the living soil, tapping the riches of her breast too often until it forgets how to nourish itself. We scrape away mountain tops in search of minerals whose value fades almost as quickly as the machines that extracted them. We fracture the ancient bedrock, cracking open the deep memory of the earth to reach buried reservoirs of energy, never asking what invisible wounds we leave behind. Still she responds with astonishing generosity. Trees stand akimbo against the wind, their branches reaching toward one another like old friends refusing to surrender. Braided rivers continue their timeless journey, finding new pathways around every obstacle, teaching us that resilience is quieter than conquest. When storms finally release their burden, her rainbow tears stretch across the sky, not as symbols of defeat, but as reminders that beauty can still emerge from grief. Again, she offers renewal. Again, she offers forgiveness. Again, she covers scorched fields with the green insistence of new life. Again, she fills the air with birdsong, blossoms, and the fragrance of beginnings. Again, she whispers, "I have not given up on you." And once more, despite everything we have done, she gives us spring.
In a world of noise, some voices cut through. Profunda.tv is a place where information goes deeper, where conversations have weight, where the goal is never to fill time, but to offer something genuinely worth yours, thoughtful, substantive, useful, an independent production of Sweet Spot Communications and the work of Phyllis Haynes Media Works. Thank you for watching.